So this is the restringing tutorial. What you're going to want is a restringing tool. I know you can buy those offline. Probably, I think Volks used to sell them, and I think Alice Collection had them for a time. What I did, because I didn't think it necessary to spend £5 to £10 or dollars on a restringing tool, is I took a wire coat hanger and have actually made my own restringing tool. That it works pretty well for most dolls, especially the chunkier ones like Lutz or AOD. A lot of dolls I have noticed lately are coming with smaller holes. Like the doll leaves obviously has this part now. I don't know what their last part looked like, but this piece doesn't actually fit through there. I could make it smaller, but then you're not going to be able to get the string to hook onto that. So I use this for mostly my SDs or some of my chunkier MSDs. Another option that I found is I have this metalwork wire. I don't know. Oh, it's 1.6 mil. Which will go through most joints. It's very malleable, so it bends and twists, like you can pull it in any which way. It's really easy to get this through the joints. So if you just fold it in half and you put the string through here. So I have the string, is you do this and then you pull this up through the joint like that. It does work really well. I do prefer it. Another option is shoelaces. Shoelaces are really good because they have the little bits at the end that make it really easy to slip through the joints. The only problem is trying to get it, like this one, it will go up really easily, but if you have to string the legs, you have to make sure that you're really good at threading needles so that you can basically just do that and it'll go through. Not my favorite method, but it does work in a pinch. You're also less likely to cut yourself on that than you are on wire. This wire isn't very sharp, so it's also not going to scrape the inside of the doll when you push it through. The coat hanger does have that sharpness to it, so you do run the risk of leaving a scratch on the inside of the resin. I personally don't mind that because it's on the inside. No one's going to see it. It's not going to damage the aesthetic of the doll. It's not going to leave any marks that anywhere you can see. So I personally don't mind it. I know a lot of other people are really picky about that. So again, there's ways you can do that. You could use hot glue and put it on the tip of that to stop it from scratching. Or if you look at my wiring video, someone has left a comment about basically wire caps or something there that's I guess they shrink. I haven't used them myself, but they do sound like a really good idea, so I would suggest looking into getting some of those. So, restringing the dolls, obviously you're going to need string. This is the doll I did just finish dyeing, so his string, and he's brand new, his string is really, really good. And it's already pre-measured because I'm just using what he came with. When you're measuring the string for any parts of the bodies, what you're going to do is, like the arms, you're going to sort of measure and be like, okay, I need roughly this much. It is okay to cut too much because you can always cut excess after. I would suggest trying to get as close to what you need for the arms as possible because it is a pain to cut it when the knot is already in there. So I'm going to start with the arms because that is my least favorite part of restringing dolls. Again, just because of the chest cavity. So, excuse me. Start with one side, and you want to go up through the center so that the knot is on the inside where it's not going to pull through very, very easily. Again, I'm pretty sure that there's other tutorials out there on restringing dolls, but I find it's always very useful to have multiple options to look at and see how other people do it. The way I do it is I did actually learn from Lutz, because Lutz has this really nifty book that does come with a lot of their dolls, I believe. At least I know I got one, and my wife recently got one with one of her secondhand dolls. And it comes with a instruction manual on how to restring dolls. So I find that very useful. It is how I learned how to restring dolls. For the most part, it was that and trial and error. Restringing dolls can be slightly nerve-wracking because there's always the risk of getting your left and your right mixed up, which is definitely a problem I had, especially with Bumblebee or Resin Soul. They used to have a bad habit of not including these nifty little marks that doll companies seem to have finally been picking up. And my wife is going to attempt to show you one of those little marks. I don't know if you can quite see it, but they do have a left and a right mark on them now. The only problem I ever seem to have with that is figuring out which way they go, especially for the peanut joint, is which way is up. That one, all I can tell you, is a trial and error. It is probably a good idea if you have a doll that is the same as the current one, that you can actually match the joints to. Restringing is sometimes a pain, especially trying to get a thick string through some of them. So I am just comparing. My camera's a little too low, so I will fix that in a second. That sort of does it, but you can at least see what I'm doing with my hands now. Yeah, so it's easy to figure out which way if you have another doll from the same company. I'm lucky in that, as I have multiple different companies. S-hooks can also be a pain. It is, again, a lot of things with this hobby, as I learned, are a lot easier when you have 4 sets of hands. Okay, if you can take that and pull. So getting the S-hook on the string, I don't think you guys can see this very well. You want to try and stretch the string so that it will fit through this tiny little gap that they've given you. Otherwise, you have to stretch the S-hook out, which it's looking like I might have to do. No, got that one. Okay, now let's get the correct hand in place. And no, I have the hand, so okay, so that is one nice floppy arm done. Another thing that really helps so that you don't pull this all the way through is hook it around the neck. You're not going to run the risk of breaking it. It just makes sure that you have enough to work with the other hand. Second, when you're pulling it back through, if you want to make sure you're pulling the correct one. So you don't want to be pulling the notch that's in there too much, because you're not going to get much give with that. So you want to try and pull the other string And always keep an eye on your hand because that can be very dangerous for your doll. I have actually cracked a wrist joint from not paying attention before. So, restringing dolls is very easy. You will probably get your fingers pinched once or twice. I find most of my dolls like to bite me for various reasons. I also like throwing bits, apparently. So if I'm sort of running out of things to say. I was hoping to have enough, like, information to share while I did this. Another thing that is really good as well is if you have to restring your doll for whatever reason, it does help, not so much help, but it is probably a good idea while you're doing that to take the opportunity to possibly suede them, or if they need scrubbing, use magic eraser and scrub them off really well as you're doing that, just to get some of the oils or the things. Yes. Okay, so this one, there's multiple. The old way to do this is that this knot used to go up through the neck. There are new ways to do it where this knot actually sits in the chest cavity, which is better overall. I'm trying to figure out how they had it. If I can see him, actually. I think it's slightly better to put it in the chest cavity because then you're not going to get... Yeah, so if you see here, he has no knot up in his head, which means the knot for his strings is down here in his chest. So that is what I'm going to attempt to do. Again, not my favorite to do because it does take some lining up. But it is better for trying to put eyes into the doll. So for this, you have the longer piece, which is going to go down through both legs. So you're going to fold it in half, tie a knot, and then fold it in half again. And these two will go down into both legs, and this bit will sit up in the head. I like to start with the head. And I don't put the head on first, but I put the S-hook, or rather, okay. I've not done this before, this way, as I usually put the knot up in the head. But I want to do this the proper way this time, so you're going to hook it around so that you have these two floppy bits that will be down in the leg. You want to pull this bit up into the head, and that's where the wire actually comes in handy, because wire, I think, is actually a lot stronger to work with when pulling strings. So put the S-hook onto there, and then pull this down. And you want to make sure that these two pieces are as even as possible. So right now I do have one that is slightly shorter than the other, so you just want to sort of tug and pull until they're roughly even, and that way you're going to have a better chance of getting both legs to be a consistent tension. I'm going to thread this down through the stomach and then down through his legs, and then we will get his legs done. And while I am doing this, my wife will actually be showing different size in threads. If you have multiple size dolls, and have seen multiple size dolls, obviously you will already know that they are going to need different size strings. A lot of that, I think, is trial and error. I haven't quite found the right size string for a lot of my dolls, but that's because I have a lot of MSDs of various sizes. So some of their joints are going to be wider than others. Some of them are going to be thinner than others. So we have
3 mil.
Yep, we have a 3 mil, which can be used, I think, for USD and for some of the really, really slim MSD. And I mean like really slim MSD. I wouldn't say mini fee. I think mini fee would take
3.5.
Probably 3.5 or a.
This is a 4.
Definitely not a 4.
This is a 4.
Yeah, that's our 4, which is actually quite thick. And I only use that for some of my really bulky SDs. I do have some resin sole USDs as well that take really thin wire or really thin string. So there's this little dude who, yeah, if you can see, it takes really, really thin. And that one you can usually find at a local craft store, I would think, or I found it at Joann's once, Joann Fabrics. So it is just...
The only one we haven't had to purchase ourselves that is different is the pets. They take sort of this almost rubbery, it's very hard to see, but this is not actually thread, it's a totally different material. They're slightly more difficult to find, I think, but it's a very fine elastic.
Yes, I'm not quite sure what that is, but I think you could use like thinner elastic like for the resin sole. Again, I'm not sure the measurement on that one because I've not restrung any of my USD resin sole because the string is really, really obnoxious to work with. Okay, so this is one of his feet done. Make sure you get the feet on the correct spot, okay? And again, this is a lot easier with 2 people. Again, with this, if I had done that, I would have not run the risk of pulling this back up into the chest cavity. I forgot to do that, but I got lucky this time. So I don't think this has been a very informative video. I'm just sort of restringing the doll. You can't really see what I'm doing. But again, I know there's other tutorials out there. This is me just trying to get some more informational videos up on my channel. If you want to see a better video of how to string things, I can try again with one of my other dolls. I have plenty that need restringing that I've just been too lazy to get around to. So really just go ahead and request it. I have no problem making another video and doing it a little bit better. I just decided to do this one because I have just dyed this doll. I can get it. Thank you. And he needed to be put back together. Because as I said in the dyeing video, he showed up as the wrong color, which means both me and my wife were rejecting him as the character he was supposed to be. Which is not good considering we waited 6 months for this particular doll. Only to have him show up as the wrong color. He is a Doll Leaves Lillian boy. Which showed up as a white skin, and he was not supposed to be white skin. So, this, let me go ahead and put his eyes in, as we have no intention of doing face-ups tonight. And while I do this, you can enjoy a lovely view of his butt, because I think Doll Leaves actually have really cute butts. Honestly, I think Doll Leaves in general are quite adorable. So I think overall his I will hand his body off to my wife right now. And if you she's gonna show like how the dye process came out so you can see him actually put together. So came out fairly even. I'm not disliking it. I have done better. This was a rush dye job, so it hadn't really been planned. Like I said, he showed up as the wrong color. And yes, I am using a Leatherman to... What I'm doing is I'm poking the eye putty around the eye so that it sits in there properly. Probably shouldn't be using the Leatherman to do that, but I don't have my dowel with me, so I'm being slightly lazy right now. Yeah, so I think that's about it for the restringing. Again, I'm going to try and do one that's slightly better, one that has a different doll in it. That's the other thing, is that a lot of dolls also, well, the general principle of restringing them is the same. Some people, I know when I first started in the hobby, I was constantly, how do I restring this particular doll? How do I do this? Because Bumblebee, I got my first one back in 2007, like late 2007, and I realized that they had a really, really obnoxious system where instead of using S-hooks on the hands, and anyone who was in the hobby back then and had a Bumblebee will probably know what I'm talking about, is they didn't use S-hooks for the feet or the hands. What they did was the string was actually looped around into the actual hand, so you couldn't just unhook the hand and be done with it, and you had to unstring the entire doll just to get the hand off or the feet. Which again, not an ideal design, so it's one that I'm really happy that Resin Soul hasn't continued on with. Also, pliers are really good and for saving your fingers from lifting the S-hook up. Or again, you can use this. It works pretty well. Or shoelaces, again. Like I said, I really like working with wire. It does work a lot better than I think string does. So yeah, that is my boy. Not that you can see all of him. Show some modesty, Harry. So yes, that is him. And if I grab the other doll that came with him, I will actually show you what color he was before, just as a comparison. Not that this is a dye video, it is restringing, but yeah, so that is how you restring a doll leaves. And once more, I will probably do another restringing video.
Perhaps with an SD.
Perhaps with an SD. Again, if there's a specific doll company that you're interested in me restringing, I don't have all the doll companies.
18.
Huh?
18.
We have 18 different doll companies. What I might try and do is try and get a list of the doll companies we do have. As I said, I have Resin Soul, I have Bumblebee, which actually I can show you what I was talking about with the hands and the feet, because I believe, yes, so this is what I was talking about. There's no way that hand is coming off without restringing it. So if people want to know how to do that, I will attempt to hunt down some string for that guy. We have Lutz, we have Dream of Doll,
Mayu Mystic Kids.
We have Mayu and Mystic Kids, Imple Doll.
DOD.
Again, I have quite a lot. So again, pick a company. I will let you know if we have it, and I will try and get a list somewhere of what companies I do have. And most of them need restringing at this point anyway, so I can do individual doll company restringing videos and hopefully do better than I did on this one. So hopefully see you next time.